neuro-energetic psychology. We've talked with Richard Duree, and we're now talking with his wife. Her name is Shanti, and she is the more experiential side of this neuro-energetic psychology. Now, I ask you the same question as your husband. What is it?
Well, sometimes it's always difficult for me to explain because it's many, many things. I would explain it a little differently. What I think that we do here is that we're working with the holistic process of the person. And, we can say we're a body, we're emotions, we're this, but they're all interactive, they all affect each other. So what we're looking for in our work is, part of what we do is we realign the nervous system to the perception. But what we're looking for is where is the out of balance. And so if, say, you have an emotional experience and you get a stomachache, it's indivisible. So what we're looking for in the patterns that people hold that keep them from choice in their life and change. When I do an interview process, the first question I ask is, what do you want change in your life? And that can be someone who's physically ill, it could be someone who has behavioral problems that they just can't get over, or things they've worked on and then they get a set of input and then they have the same reaction. So we're looking to release those reactive patterns out of the body so they can be more present with themselves.
So the question comes up with me, how many people say, I don't need to change?
They wouldn't come to us then.
They wouldn't come to you. But do you think those people exist that are kind of happy within themselves and say, life is okay?
Sure, I do. But I think we also, I think when I heard you say something to Richard about, the native culture, I think that existed far more when there was a tribal wholeness concept. And in our modern society, we don't live in that natural world anymore. We're not, we've stepped out of nature. For us, that's not true. We live in the woods and the mountains because it's very important. And so someone wouldn't come to me if they felt like their life was totally happy. They come because there's something not working, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. If they're feeling disconnected. So again, I'm going to go through the same process. It's like, what is the metaphors of the flesh that you hold inside of you that keep you from what you want?
But in a way you're implying, you say, those older people, the more nature-oriented people, maybe the American Indians or wherever in the world, the Aboriginals, they were more whole as a culture, and therefore the people were more whole.
I think so.
So this implies if so many people come to us with questions about change and being unhappy about the situation, so basically our society is not very healthy.
I agree. I think it's very. I use a metaphor in our classes, and it's that I think the intentionality of us coming in here is like these beautiful balls of light, just in our own perfection, and then it can start from conception, depending on what gets imprinted there, through the womb, through childhood, particularly childhood, and that starts to get narrowed down, that sense of wholeness, and then what gets overlaid with that is the adaptable behavior. I'm not good enough. I'm stupid, or I can't make it, or whatever those messages are, and we wire those in long enough, that becomes the identity. And yet underneath there's this yearning to come back to wholeness. I think that's true for everybody.
Yeah, so that is a model that I would describe as, the inner child that is beautiful. It's you call the higher or the inner self. And then we develop personality, ego, a mask. That we respond to what our parents want, the school, and we gradually become that mask.
Yes.
The mask can evolve, and there's all kinds of techniques to make the mask a little bit better, but to get in touch with that inner child is really what matters.
That's what I believe, yes, because most of the choices that were made were when we were children. Children were these wide open beings that were just open to explore and discover, and then as those things get laid on, or you have to do this, or this is a gender thing, or whatever the belief systems are, they start to narrow that essence down, but they're still alive. A lot of the work I do is taking people back to that child to the point where they made that choice, because it was the very best choice they could make at the time.
Because it was a necessary defense.
Absolutely. Usually it is. I always ask, what's the positive intention of the behavior? Most times I would say to be safe, to be protected.
Could you also say that it was a necessary decision in life's process of learning that they, in a way, they choose these parents, this situation, and so the abuse or the defense system that developed was necessary for the later life soul development?
Well, I don't know about that. It could be, yes. I think that life experiences has that. And if it keeps you in a place where you're not allowing your soul to move through you because of these programmed masks, as you call them, then that's what you can change. It's like you don't have to wear the abuse and live it in your life all the time and be the victim of it. It can
pass it on even.
And absolutely, it definitely gets passed down. Definitely gets passed down. And that's why it's easier for it to be passed down than to change it, because that's the automatic path. That's the path of least resistance.
Now there are since psychology developed, I think William James is a good starting point, 120 years ago. We have seen an enormous amount of theories and practices and approaches and techniques. NLP, Scientology, many churches have developed ways of doing it, scream theory, many methods. Do you think they were useful? Are you using them, part of them, integrating them into it?
Part of them I am. Yeah, like some of my background is in NLP, and I was a part of when the human potential movement started, and when they were using Gestalt therapy and then movement therapy.
And,
yes, all of that. So what it is I've taken the collection of my experience and the great teachers I've had, and we've made it into what we now call neuroenergetic psychology. So yes, we stand on the shoulders of our teachers, and hopefully keep evolving the process.
Now I've seen many groups and participated in groups and seen places like the Esalen Institute and or the whole Osho movement. What I found out that many of those techniques are in practice used to enhance or alter a little bit the mask. People become a little bit more social, they adapt themselves, but in fact they were hampering the real work on the core.
I would say that the work that we do is core work. And that's what's profound for me. It's very humbling for me to be witness, because I do get to witness this, is that we're going to what is the core, not the surface stuff. And I must say, though, when you were talking about with Richard about different people and their awarenesses, if someone takes a small step, that's great. I'll go with them with that. But if there's somebody who's really ready to make a big change, I'll go with that too. I have no judgment when I'm working with someone. And the idea is to get back to this wholeness, as far as I'm concerned. And so what's in the way of that? And what were the choices, and what was the positive intention behind making that choice, like safety or protection? How is it not facilitating your life? Okay, if it works for you, you keep it. If it doesn't, then how can you change that? And we really follow the lead of the person. We believe in the integrity of the soul, of the being that they are, and they have all the answers.
So you say the inner wholeness is in fact the best teacher. It will guide a person to the development of this, the freeing, we could say.
If we can listen to it, if we can be in tune with it, yes. But we get so adapted. We're very adaptable as human beings to survive. And then we live out, a lot of times, the patterns, or the mask is your word that you use, then that's who we are. And it's not there. I think every human being has a yearning to be connected to the soul. They act as if it's something outside themselves, and it's truly here. It's right here, right now, me talking to you, listening to you, being in present time, is the soul expression.
It's without time, you say?
Yeah.
Beyond time.
Yeah.
Now, that's what the old Vedic teacher said. Time has no meaning.
Absolutely.
And perception is Maya, is an illusion.
And that's when exactly, and that's when I believe that your soul is creating right now, when you're in that no time. I'm not in the past, I'm not in the present, I'm here with you. So it's not some mystical thing that we can't have access to, it's with us all the time, but we've forgotten that. And you were talking about religion with Richard. To me, those are all rituals that help us come back to time, whether it's Osho or it's someone else. They're all things to get back to here.
But can we honor, say, the Catholic faith or whatever faith as also a legitimate way to come back to that inner
Sure.
core?
It's all ritual. And as human beings, that is something that's ancient as ritual as storytelling is. For me, that where you start using guilt to motivate people, I have a little bit of a problem, because I don't think that you necessarily need to change through being guilted into doing it. I think there's a way of doing it with grace, there's a way of doing it with love, and learning to love yourself. So I have a different approach, but I certainly accept that works for people.
Guilt, that's an interesting thing. Lately we have seen Al Gore on television in his movie about the CO2 and the global warming. Many scientists say, well, the high temperature was first and the CO2 follows, but he lays a guilt trip really on the world, like we've been using too much energy and we should scale down in cars and whatever. But he's using this guilt motive, and I think it's dangerous, because guilt leads to finding someone guilty, not yourself, not ourselves, but now we think about big industries, but someone outside of us. Well, the solution, if there's any solution, should lie within ourselves, isn't it?
Well, I think that's true. Why I think, if you want to talk about Al Gore for just a moment, our country was pretty much asleep about its world's consciousness, and I feel like, whether it was guilt or not, that he was trying to wake up the American public, because it's been under a shadow of our government that doesn't allow you to look beyond what are you responsible for, what are your actions in the world. And to me, that's a way of being more conscious of what do we do in ourselves, what do we do that helps this make a better place to live. You know, what is our part? Be more conscientious of what we're doing. That's how I took his message.
As a wake-up call.
As a wake-up call, because people are very asleep in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we are. Now that's an old theme, of course, of Gurdjieff, who said, you know, we're all sleepwalking all the time, and only at these moments, like we just had this moment, I see you, you see me, we realize we are, as the old Vedic teachers would say, we're not our feelings, we're not our brain, we're something which is beyond that. Mostly we can say what it's not. What it is.
Right, what is it?
What is it,
yeah.
Yes.
One of the questions you asked Richard, and of course you're going to get a different answer from me about do you believe in God or a spirit. I believe in an omnipresence that is of energy, of frequency, and that we are a part of that. So we are actually, if you want to use the word God, we are God creating. We are part of the whole. We're not separate. We are co-creators. So if that's true, then how do we want to co-create in a way that works for us better?
Well, that's a question for me too, because that is between the mystical, which is allowing God to come in, and the magical, which means using the godness in ourselves to create outside. There is this dichotomy, there's this balance. Even in your work, that's in fact magical work, because you're working with people, you're changing their lives, even if they come asking for it. But it's a magical profession.
You're right, and I love
Yes.
it. Because you know what? I get to see the miracle in the person. I get to see their potentiality. The witnessing of it is very humbling for me, because I know the potentiality for myself. I've developed this work primarily in my own healing process. And I know it works. It's not like I have to have faith in it. I know it works because I know the changes that have happened for me. And then I see how it works with other people. And so, yes, I think that it is magical work, and it's simple work too. It's not very complicated. It doesn't have a lot of heavy structure to it.
Is it a natural process? Like if you look at a flower in spring, that, you know, it starts out a little thing, green, grows, and then it flowers and it also dies. That has been there for all times, this process of growth. Is that the natural thing for a human being too?
I think so.
To open like a flower and...
I think so. One summer I spent my whole summer saying, okay, humans have lost touch with how to grow. Teach me how to grow. And I really tuned to my garden one whole summer just to watch the phenomena of that natural flow of blossoming. And I do think we have that potential. That's what's in the way, is what's in the way of the potential of our natural growth.
Mm-hmm. Now, coming back to the variety of techniques, sometimes I feel there's a fragmentation in our world, and whether you call it the New Age world or the Human Potentials movement, but it's so fragmented. There is seminars, and sometimes you have a few hundred people, sometimes a few thousand people, but it's all over the place and it's nowhere. It's not in the government books. It's not in the official agenda. You might see a little clip of Burning Man on television, but that's about it. And yet, everybody I speak to has the need for this work.
I agree. They do.
Yes. How does it come we don't work together? Like in the 60s, there was this feeling.
Oh, I know. I was very much a part of the 60s. Actually, I never stopped being one of those people from the 60s. And I kept going, where did everybody go? What happened? You know, what changed?
And they're all there. I have interviewed Alan Cohen, Michael Bone, who started the first human being in, you know, the San Francisco Chronicle. All those people, of course, Leary that you knew. And many of them are still around, and they have the same yearning for that feeling that we had late 60s, early 70s, that something was going to happen. The Vietnam War was... And in fact, we have the same political situation. We could stop the Iraq War, or the Iran War in the making, and unite, and...
We're starting to see that, though, in the States. It's like, and it's the next generation, the younger people. And, you know, I always felt like, well, hopefully I can be like an older sage for some of these young people. It's coming back, I believe that. And they're using the focus of the ecology, but it's also about consciousness. And, you know, we have some old paradigms that are pretty powerful, like government, our government, and the way things have been going and things in the world. And I feel like some of those are being, and the Catholic Church, they're being shook up. They're being shook up because there is this yearning, there is this collective yearning. And I believe, this is just my belief, that there of the critical mass that is building all over the world. And my hope and dream is that that's going to reach its potential, and there's going to be a mass shifting. But I see a lot of it changing. We live on the West Coast, and as you well know, it's a different world, and California is a different planet altogether of consciousness, and so it's becoming more commonplace. You even see businesses now wanting to bring in different people to work with their teams in a more conscious way. So it's beginning. It's just not as big as I'd like to see it. But I think that movement's still there.
But coming back to your work, where you look at a person and you see there's outside influences, but basically your inner mechanism of connecting all the parts, the emotions in the brain and the body, and reintegrating them. Why doesn't that happen in society? If we all have this understanding, or you have this understanding, and many people have it, that you can work from the inside out and from the outside in, and both work, but we have to do something. And society seems to stand still, thinking in dollars, weapons, military troops. Yeah. Why can we not bring this inner process awareness to the wider world?
Well, I think it's like a pebble in the pond. You know, you start with one person at a time, and then it has a rippling effect. I can't answer why. I don't know the answer to that. But I believe that we do have an effect, and I hold that vision that we are making an effect, and that eventually it will come to pass.
Yeah, but like in the 60s, there were these heroes, so to speak. And for me, Leary was one, but that's a personal experience. But there were around Das maybe other people, Osho, that had this worldwide effect. That there were hundreds of thousands of people going to India or to Oregon and being part of that movement.
But you know, part of where that came from, at least in the States, I think, is that after the war, the big war, then there was this 50s, which was created a plastic reality, and then our generation was going, there's something more than this. And so it took the Vietnam War, and that brought people together, the Beatles, music, consciousness, brought that generation together, and then it went worldwide to say, no, we're not going to go that way, because they put people in a box, and we're in a box now. I'm not. I don't live in the box.
But most people do.
Most people do.
The box of they're making rent.
Well, it could be making rent, money, culture, family structures.
Second life on the internet.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. And so there's been a formed box, and then there's a fear of getting out of the box because that's known.
Okay, but again, what you're saying is that the culture, our Western culture, that part went to a number of experiential traumatic experience, the war, past war, plasticizing, virtualization, whatever we call it, and could come to a point where, like in your work, a catharsis happens and people say, oh, let's change this.
Well, I see that in every class. We just came from Spain, and we get to watch people make their expansions, and then they go back and their lives are different. They go and change their world. And I figure if I could do it one person at a time, I mean, I may not be able to take the whole world on, but if one person at a time can make that shift in themselves and create that resonance, and they're going to take it back to their community, their families, and that's where change makes it. I mean, I believe in the change, totally.
That's great. You have a few billion people to go.
Well, I used to think it was my job to do the world, but it's not. It's my job is to be, I figured this out actually as I got older, was to be that person myself, and then I will affect the ones around me, and therefore also I teach them.
You will generate ripples in the pond.
That's exactly right. I'm a stone dropped in the pond. And I love that, because I get to see people really in their true essence. And they're beautiful. I mean, they drop ideas, they drop their gender roles or whatever their belief systems are, and they get to be in that presence. That's why we teach it that way. It's very experiential. We put people through the changes, because we figure no practitioner can lead someone down a path they haven't walked themselves. So they go through very big changes. And they keep thinking, oh, can I do this? Because there's that crucial point of, I want to change, but the fear of the unknown is scarier than staying in the box. And so we hold a certain frequency. Richard and I hold a certain frequency, so that we hold that, we model that resonance, so that they can feel safe and step into the change. It's wonderful to watch.
It's a frequency, it's a color.
It's color, it's energy, it's visceral, you can feel it. I feel it in my heart, you know.
Shanti,
and I feel it's loving them.
It's loving them. That's the true message. Here in the Hof van Axen, somewhere in Holland, in a beautiful environment, we've been talking with Shanti, Duree, about her work and about loving people.
That's right. Bottom line, that's it.
That's it.